Welcome to week one and our reflection on the values and ethics of social policy, advocacy, and welfare in the United States. As you're thinking about value frames, you're going to look at NASW Code of Ethics, you're going to look at the 7 themes of Catholic social teaching. I want you to think about your value frame as a forming social worker. What are the values that you embrace? What is the code of your practice? Do you embrace the NASW Code of Ethics? As you think about your own faith or your own religious practice or your own belief system, how does that impact your understanding of social policy? So, the welfare system in the United States is laced with values, some of which we agree with, some which we reject, but as welfare has formed over the last 240 plus years, even going back maybe even 10,000 years to the Judeo laws and rules of the Talmud, to Christian values and rules of the New Testament, into the modern era across 2,000 years of development and progress, into the poor laws of London and England, and finally to the United States welfare laws. American welfare is formed on beliefs of individualism, ruggedness, independence, a work ethic that it could be characterized as a Calvinistic work ethic of you must work if you care to eat or want to have shelter over your head, freedom, independence, charity, a concern for others, what the Catholic would call a common good. These are all values that drive our welfare system, and the push and pull of politics around who gets what and who deserves what is determined largely by which political party is viewing the values that we just talked about. I want you to be a critical thinker and not just look at policies as a Democrat or a Republican. I don't want you to look at them as a conservative or a liberal. I want you to think about efficacy of policy. Let's talk about poverty for a minute, which we'll talk a lot about in the coming weeks. How do you end poverty? The welfare programs of today could be said that they certainly are to help people survive poverty, put a roof over their head, give them food to eat, give them medical care, give them basic education, and so forth. But do the welfare programs of today really end poverty for people? I suspect you would arrive at the conclusion that current welfare programs are not designed to end poverty, that they are indeed only intended to maybe help people survive in poverty. For me, that's a mistake. For me, anti-poverty programs ought to be programs that end poverty for people. That means creating economic opportunity. That means creating healthy environments. That means helping people get the food they need and the shelter they need and the medical care they need so that they can go on about the business of becoming productive and remaining productive in a capitalistic market. I can't really summarize, can't really go too deep into that idea in this little video overview of this week. I come back to where I started. I want you to think about the values and the ethics that drive you as a budding social worker. And as you look at policy, look through the frame, the lens of your value systems. I want to make a note about NASW. The Code of Ethics is the Code of Ethics for social work, but the National Association for Social Work is not the governing body over social work. It's a membership organization. Social workers belong to it because they pay dues and apply for membership. I am not a member of NASW. I absolutely subscribe to the Code of Ethics of NASW, but I am not a member of NASW. NASW clashes deeply with my Catholic belief system. And as a Catholic social worker, while I subscribe to the Code of Ethics, I do not subscribe to NASW. You'll have to make up your own mind, decide for yourself. But my church teaches me about the sanctity of life, the sanctity of marriage, and other concerns that the NASW diametrically opposes, and in fact teaches social workers that they should advocate for euthanasia, they should advocate for abortion. These things cannot happen in my value system. I'm not offering that it is your value system. You have to come up with your own. You have to develop your own as a social worker. But I absolutely want you looking at policy through a value lens and be able to articulate it. We're going to talk a lot about this in week 2. So kind of get your head around what is your value system. Don't be afraid to share it. Don't be afraid if you're Jewish, Catholic, Muslim, Christian, atheist, whatever it is, where your values come from and why and how you arrived at them, and how those inform you as a social worker who cares about people who are on the margins of society. Look forward to learning about this with you. Look forward to exploring these conversations. We'll talk more about it. Feel free to reach out to me independently, individually, if you care to have more conversation about it. Enjoy week 1. We're looking at values of social work and policy and your values as a person becoming a social worker. All right, be well, be blessed.